Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Liberty Magic at Home, a project of the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust. On tonight's show, magic educator and world-renowned performer Randee Shine, the most amazing mentalist duo you'll ever see, the Evasons, and historian and comedy magician Rory Rennick. Now put your hands together for our special guest host tonight, Liberty Magic's inaugural magician, Eric Jones.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Guys, my name is Eric Jones. Theater goers, digital theater goers, welcome to another episode of Liberty Magic at Home. And as you can probably tell, I am not Zoe Ruth. She's got the night off, and tonight I am going to be your special guest host as we navigate through this amazing holiday called Juneteenth with a few of my friends who are some of the most adept and amazing performers in the world of magic who also happen to be Black. We're going to have an amazing discussion. We'll share some amazing, incredible magic, and we'll have some discussion that hopefully will be insightful to you at home as it is to us here in the studio. The first person I'd like to bring out is a good friend of mine. I've known him for the majority of my magical career. He is a Philadelphia native. I also live in Philadelphia. He's an educator. He's an amazing performer. He's an incredible person. Let's introduce a gentleman named Randee Shine. Randee Shine is in the house. How you doing, my man?
What's good, man? How are you, man? It's good to see you. Good to be here.
Glad to be here. So one of the things that I didn't tell is that you are an incredible college magician. In fact, you won the APCA College Magician of the Year. Is that correct?
Yes, two times. I won that
twice.
Yeah.
Even better. You've also you appeared on Penn and Teller. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Oh, well, as you know, I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, and had a little bit of different journey on how I got into the magic world. Actually, the short story, I was working on my PhD in public health and studying epidemiology, and I decided to leave that world and become a professional magician. And for the past 16, 17 years, that's what I've been doing, performing on college campuses, cruise ships, corporate, and military bases.
Well, that's awesome. So I'm hoping you have a little bit of magic prepared for us this evening.
Yes, I do. I like to start off with a just quick warm-up exercise using these $3.50 and two hands and just one incredible magician with dreadlocks. Yeah, that's just me. Coin number one, don't blink. Just a puff of air. And it's completely gone. That's one down, two to go. Second coin, listen at the speed of sound. That coin completely vanishes. That leaves us with one more coin, a third coin. Now this coin is not going to vanish. This coin is just going to travel from here to there. That's coin number one right here. Coin number one. Coin number two is just about there. Good. And coin number three, if you watch here, it was slowly materialize right before your eyes. That's one, that's two, and that's three. I'm warmed up, so let's continue on.
That's awesome. You got any more for us?
Yes. Now, this next trick, I need 3 volunteers to help me out with this next trick. Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Good, thank you.
Well, what is your names?
I'm Joanna Mabuzor.
I'm Michael. And I'm Seth.
I'm sorry?
Seth.
Seth. Joanna, Michael, and Seth. Now, cards are ancient, mysterious, and ritualistic. There's also magical properties about cards. And some people even say cards contain important messages for individuals, communities, and societies. And so that's what this is about. However, I'm going to need the assistance of all 3 of you for this. Joanna, ladies first. I'm going to run my thumb down the side, and you tell me when to stop before I get to the end, okay?
Okay. Stop.
Right here? Good?
Yes.
That's 1 card right there, Joanna. I want you just to remember that card right here. Okay, Seth, your turn.
All right.
Same thing?
Stop.
Right here? Good. That's card number 2. Right there. Card number 2. Now, Michael, correct?
Correct.
Your turn. Last and final card. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Right here?
Yep.
Good. Right there. Card number 3. As I said, cards are ancient, mysterious, and ritualistic. But I also said cards have some magical properties. Simply by twisting the deck 360 degrees 7 times, 7 is the number of completion. It's the perfect number. And that's just a small little ritual that invokes the magic, because as you can see, all these cards are now blank. And every card is blank. But I also said that cards contain important messages and individuals to the communities and society. These cards contain an important message, and that is Black lives matter. Right there.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible, Randee. Incredible.
I'd like to share one more thing.
Of course.
I'd like to share, actually teach someone how to do a trick, everyone, okay? My 3 friends that I just met, okay? I know there's a little rivalry between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and just take this as a peace offering between both cities. And I'm just gonna teach you a simple trick with a dollar bill. The first thing you do is hold it in this orientation. That's very important that you just hold it in that orientation. And then you fold it left to right, up and down, left to right, up and down. Give it a little snap. And when you open up that dollar bill, it would transform and change into a $100 bill.
Wow.
That's a good trick.
Now, I'll tell you what, after the show this evening, get a $1 bill, look in the mirror, fold it left to right, up and down, left to right, up and down, snap, open it up. It's not going to work, but you'll have a lot of fun trying.
Oh my gosh, Randee, thank you so much. We're going to come back to you in just a couple of minutes, but what I'd love to do now is introduce our next guests. They've performed on 38 countries around the world. You've seen them on Penn and Teller Fool Us. They are one of a very few husband and wife teams that have learned a secret, a talent called the second sight. Let's play their video. This is the Evasons.
In this day and age of electronic communication, seeing someone that does it in the old style and seeing how much better that is than the new style is just breathtaking. We worked our asses off for years and didn't get 1/1000th of where they are. The kind of mental gymnastics that are done on this are unbelievable. This is one of those rare acts where the more you know about it, the more amazing it is. This act is so good, I want them to be working forever and doing this act everywhere. I can say this without any fear of contradiction. I have never seen better at what you're doing. and it is just fabulous.
Here they are, Jeff and Tessa, the Evasons. How you guys doing?
Hey,
Great.
Eric, it's so good to see you. And we're so excited
Likewise.
to participate here with all you wonderful entertainers. And on Juneteenth, how wonderful is that?
Darn
Awesome.
right. I'm glad to have you guys. So glad. So what I'm going to do is not waste any time. I'd love you guys to take the stage and show us what you've got.
Can't wait.
Love to. Hey, everybody. As mentalists, we know a lot about listening. Now, if many people could learn to listen, can you imagine what it'd be like? Because they'd be able to understand each other a whole lot better.
Ever since we first met, we've always had a strong connection between us. But tonight, we're going to connect with a few of the participants. So who do we have? Can we bring them up? And hey.
Hello there.
Hey, you guys. So it's Seth, Michael, and Joanna. I believe you were told to bring some things with you. Is that true?
Yes.
Perfect. You haven't shown us. Does anybody know what it is that you have with you other than yourselves?
No.
Haven't shown anybody, haven't told. Okay, so maybe we have some books. We said bring some personal objects. Maybe somebody has some money, but we'll get to that in just a moment.
Right. So I think I want to actually start off with Michael. So Michael, everybody here listening, we all think about the social distancing and people we'd love to see that we haven't seen in person for a very long time. I'm sure you know someone of that kind. And I want you to think of that person, just one person. Don't say who it is, but imagine that they are here with you now in your heart, in your mind. And I want you to take that paper you have with you and write their first and their last name down, but don't let us see it. Now, of course, Seth is there, so maybe he'll see it. Or if you want, don't let him see it either. But you do that, and we'll get back to you in just a moment.
Print it nice and big, nice and clear with your Sharpie. While you're doing that, I want to show you, this is a blindfold that Tessa is going to wear. Normally, if we were in a live show, we would hand this out, but I'll let you have a look at it. When she places this over her eyes, it is completely solid. No way she can see through. In fact, if I take this flashlight from behind and just shine it, as you can see, no light comes through the fabric because there's 4 layers of solid cloth to form the blindfold.
As I place it on my head here now like this, it's going to eliminate my sense of sight, and it will heighten my sense of hearing, and it will allow me to listen to your thoughts more closely.
So I'll move a little forward. She's behind. There are no other monitors. There's no way that she could see, only the one screen that I am facing at this moment. Michael, you wrote something down. Yes, it's a friend. Can we highlight Michael, make his screen a little bit bigger? I want all the viewers to see this. Is there a way to also have Tessa in the camera as well, or in the screen at the same time? There she is. Perfect. So you can see she's not looking. Michael, hold whatever it is you've written down, hold it up so the viewers at home, so everybody can see. Definitely that's it. You're going to try and help Tessa, Michael.
I want you to think of this person for me, Michael. I don't know you, so I don't have a sense of all the people in your life, but I get a strong feeling about feminine energy. It makes me think you're focusing on someone female, correct?
That is correct.
It is a yes, and as well, this is good. Describe it. See if she gets the first initial of the first name.
I start to see a letter. It looks like an N to me. I think somewhere there's a T. There seems to be a few A's. The best thought I can get is Natalie.
It is Natalie. Her last name.
I'm going to try for that. That's a little more challenging. I see some letters. Is that an M? Is it an A?
Definitely.
There's an M. Is that a G? I think there's an R somewhere.
Yes, you described it. See?
And I think it's a U and an M. Is it Mangrum? Is that how you say
Natalie
it?
Mangrum.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Fantastic. This is a friend of yours, Michael. I assume that she's somewhere far away, at least not near enough for you to see in this moment. Joanna, did you have something with you in the way of an item, an object? Now you can reach into your purse. Maybe you're going into your wallet. Maybe you're taking something off of the table nearby. But let's do this. And if we could maybe highlight perfect, this is both of us. Natalie, whatever it is, the more personal it is, the better connection you will make with Tessa.
Yes.
Take it out.
Pick something good here.
Yeah, anything
Got
at
a
all.
big purse. There's so much stuff.
I can sense that.
I have looked into a lot of purses over the years while we've been doing what we do, and I've seen some amazing things. So sometimes a little unusual, sometimes it's everyday objects, but let's just get a random thing that makes something special to you, that makes sense to you. Hold it up so we could all see. Perfect. Look, identify. Try and get it. Move it a little closer.
Now, I can't see you, but I get a sense that you're somebody that always likes to look your best and feel your best. And although you're limited in your travels, I see you still come prepared. I was thinking what you have is small. There's bristles on it like a brush, but not a brush you'd comb your hair with. I'm thinking, is that actually a toothbrush?
Yes,
it is a toothbrush. I think over the years, Joanna, maybe there's been 2 or 3 people who have held the toothbrush up.
Yeah.
Face just a side test.
I don't think I'm seeing.
You got to understand.
Yeah.
And Tess, look at the toothbrush, the colors of the toothbrush.
I think there's colors. Let me be sure, but there's a white, and is that a bluish shade?
Yes, it's a shade of blue and some white. Who else do we have? We have time for one more. I think we could do one more.
Seth, maybe?
Seth.
Yeah.
Do you have any money? Or maybe you have a book with you? Are we okay, Eric? Can we do one more thing? Perfect. Thank you. Seth, whatever it is that you have, but let's get something. The most challenging things that she could possibly do are things that even you didn't know you would actually be focusing on. So if you have some money, I'll guide you in that direction. If you have a few books, take a stack of books, maybe 2 or 3. Whatever it is, it's up to you. But don't say what it is.
Oh, well.
I want Tessa to know in any fashion. So whatever you have, take it and hold it up in front of the camera so that everybody at home could see. Look at this thing, Tess.
Okay, it's interesting, Seth, because I get a sense of paper right away, but both money and books are paper, but I sense words. I suspect you went with a book. Yes?
It's 2 books. If you can say this and try this other test. If she accomplishes this, if she guesses the book you're focusing on, Seth.
I'm thinking it's very short title. It involves possibly a number. I'm sensing something about catching. Is it catch? Is it having anything to do with the number 5?
No, guess this.
Just keep thinking. I see now. 22.
Catch 22.
Gotcha.
Is that
Of
your
course it
favorite
makes
book?
sense.
This is the one you were just thinking of. Open up Catch 22 to any page of your choice. And are the page numbers at the top of the page, or are they near the bottom of the page?
They're at the top of the page.
So hold the top of the page with the page number of your choice, as long as it has words on it, full words. The beginning of a chapter might have an empty spot, but bring it right forward in front of the camera. And you've got 2 pages in front of you. That's it. The question is, it's a little blurry. The page number, Tess?
I'm sensing a page number of 142.
And it is page 142.
We're connecting really well.
Could you run your finger down page 122 and focus on one word? Just stop on any word on that page and then hold that page up in front of the camera so that everybody could see the random word that you thought of, but everybody also needs to see that Tessa is really facing the other way. From the very beginning, she really is. That's it. I presume, please. For this, please focus on the word, Tess.
So I think with you, I sense being on the outdoors. I sense flowers. I get a scent very strong. It makes me think about lavender.
And it is lavender.
It is.
Oh, wonderful.
Wow.
Oh, this has been so good to connect with all 3 of you. It's been really amazing. And can you just imagine if people could listen the way that you listened and I listened, that maybe we'll make stronger connections and the sense of love will be the most powerful of all. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Man, I'm mad. I've been doing magic 20 years. I've got no idea how they did any of that. But, we're going to hear more from the Evasons in just a few moments. The next guy that I want to introduce you to now is another dear friend of mine. He's a historian. He's a magician. He's an educator. He's got a book that's coming out called Henry Box Brown's Legacy and My Life with Him. He's got an amazing one-man show where he plays Henry Box Brown, and we're going to learn a little bit about that character. But first, let me introduce you to my good friend, Rory Rennick.
A laugh at the comedy magic of Rory Rennick.
I want to thank you all guys for coming out for supporting live entertainment, and especially the Magic Theater for inviting me, and it's not even February. No, okay, sir. I can bring it back. Put your hand on there, spread your fingers wide. I'm gonna reach down through, plunge between your fingers down to your selected card. How cool would that be? Okay. Yeah. Can you see the tear on her face? Go ahead, put your hand down. Okay. I'm gonna go right down through here. This is not television, I can hear you. Okay. I know what you're thinking. White girl, black man, a knife and a glove. What could go wrong?
Keep it going for Rory Reddick. So funny. So funny.
All right, that's Rory Rennick as Professor.
What would you do if your family was taken and you were left with nothing? And what if a near impossible idea grabbed your spirit and flooded your soul with the very hope of freedom? Would you risk dying for it? Discover one man's incredible journey and what he left behind for us.
Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Henry Box Brown.
They say they want me to come back to the future. I'll be there.
That's the vibe, man. I like that music, brother. Rory, how are you, my man?
Great. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you were able to make it. If I could, have you tell us a little bit about yourself and your association with Henry Box Brown?
Thank you so much. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and just a little bit about me. 3 months ago at the Midwest Magic Convention, yours truly walked away with 2 first-place trophies.
Congratulations.
No. Yeah. I walked away with the trophies when nobody was looking. Okay, that's how I roll. I grew up in the projects. What do you expect? But we're here for celebrating Juneteenth, the emancipation of many African Americans. At the time, it was signed it was proclaimed in 1863, but in 1865, it finally reached its way to Texas. And of course, good news travels slow. But Henry Box Brown was born in 1865 in a place called Louisa County, right outside of Richmond, Virginia. And when he was about 13 or 14 years old, his family was ripped apart. And his family was divided between the 4 sons of his master. He landed in Richmond, Virginia, worked in a tobacco factory, and he met a woman named Nancy. They got married, even though they had separate masters, and they were allowed to live together. That was until one day he came home, only to find that his wife, his 3 children, his furniture was all taken. It was sold. It was being held in the slaveholders' jail. Now, this is a true story.
he went to his master to try to get a loan, or at least to get his master to buy his family's freedom. His master rebuffed him and told him that his family was another man's business now. Henry, being very distraught, he ran to the center of town only to find 5 wagons with about 350 children. He could see his youngest child and his oldest child reaching through the bars trying to tell him, "Father, I knew you would come." But he was unable to help his family. He saw them go down the road. His wife was with about 12 other adults sailing on foot, and they marched all the way from Richmond to North Carolina. He never saw his family again. So he, being that distraught, he began to pray and wanted to know about freedom, but he had stopped going to church. He stopped singing. Then one day, an idea came to him to make a box and to get into it. He told his friend, James Caesar Anthony Smith, which was a free black man, who told him about a white man, a bootmaker named Samuel Smith, who had connections to abolitionists in Philadelphia. Well, they went into Samuel Smith's warehouse at about 4 o'clock in the morning, March the 23rd. They nailed him shut inside of the box. The box was placed on a wagon, then on a train, then on a boat. But while it was on the boat, the box was turned upside down while he was inside. He almost died in the process. But when he came to Philadelphia, the 4 abolitionists, thinking that they were going to see a dead man inside, they pried open the boxes, and he was resurrected into freedom. The word of his escape spread like wildfire, and he was invited to speak at every abolition in anti-slave convention in the Northeast. That was until the fugitive slave law, which in 1850 meant that slave catchers could go even to free states and retrieve their property. Well, Henry Box Brown shared the stage with William Wells and the notable Frederick Douglass. And so one time he was lecturing in Providence, Rhode Island. 5 men came out of a wagon. They tried to grab him and bring him back into slavery. He was able to fight them off. But when it happened twice within 48 hours, he knew it was unsafe in America. So he set sail, him and his friend James, and he moved to England. There he remarried. He began to lecture, but he wanted to add some entertainment. So he entered into mesmerism. Today we call it hypnosis. And then he also had a stint on the stage as an actor before he landed finally into magic. He stayed there for 25 years and came back to the United States. And that is an incredible story.
That's an incredible legacy, in fact. And, you know, how did you get involved with learning about Henry Box Brown to create your own show revolving around his legacy?
Well, I was researching African-American magicians and found very few. But when I found that, I was familiar with his story a little bit, but I didn't know that he had went on to become a magician. And so after I learned about it, I became intrigued to the point of obsession. So I decided to bring his story to the stage. I wrote a stage play, produced the music that you were jamming to was part of the music that I created for a show as well.
That's absolutely incredible. Now, I'm noticing that you've got a really ornate box in front of you. Is that for a piece of magic you'd like to share with us?
If I could.
I would love to see it. I bet the viewers at home would love to as well.
I wanted to do a tribute. This is more of a tribute than a trick for Henry Box Brown. I chose a jewelry box because I always wanted to remind myself and also my audience that your life is valuable. And that's what we kept in jewelry box, things that are valuable to us. Typically, when I'm on stage with my audience, I let them examine the box and make sure that everything is kosher, no hidden trap doors. But also because he was delivered as mail, I used an envelope, and you can see that it's empty. You know, you can see the
empty,
light.
completely empty.
Right. Typically I would have my audience members, I would tell them to seal it and sit on it. So I'm going to seal it, but I'm not going to sit on it because I want it to stay in full view. And if our volunteers would keep an eye on this, fantastic. Now, I'm going to need one card to represent Henry Box Brown. There were many people who were enslaved. So I'll let you see that they're all different. Can you see the different cards?
Yes.
Great. So Seth, I'm going to take the cards and go like this. And at any point in time you say stop, that'll be the card.
All right.
Used for Henry.
Stop.
Right there?
Yep.
Okay. So this will be the card we use for Henry. Can you see it?
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. It's the 10. I'm going to place it here. In fact, let's put Henry inside of the box. And here are the 5 keys to escape. Let me know if you can. Let me find the sweet spot there. Let me see. How about there? Can you see the 5 keys?
There we go. Yeah, we can see them now.
Right. Knowledge, desire, plan, opportunity, and courage. You need all 5 of these if you want to make an escape. I don't care if it's from a person, place, or thing. If you want to escape a person, an ideology, an institution, you'll need these keys. Knowledge, number 1. I'm going to place this inside of the box as well. You're going to need knowledge of who you are and where you are. Harriet Tubman said she could have saved a lot more people had they only known that they were slaves. You have to know where you are, have a real assessment as to who and where you are. Number 2, you need a desire. Your desire has to be overwhelming to be free. It's almost like a dream. A dream is your desire. But sometimes you need to wake up from your dream. 3, you need a plan. And that involves strategic thinking. And if you don't have a plan, get with someone who can. That proves how smart you are by allying with someone smarter than you. So, and also you're going to need an opportunity. Henry needed an opportunity to escape. So what happened with him, he worked at the factory, in a factory, but he knew that his sore finger was not bad enough. So he had his friend James get some oil of vitriol or some acid, and he poured it on his finger, and it burned to the bone. He went overboard. Well, he had to miss work, and that's how he was able to go to the warehouse to get into the box. So you need an opportunity. And then also you need courage. Courage to escape doesn't mean your absence of fear, but to act even in the face of fear. And sometimes your desire to escape has to be greater than your fear of getting caught or failure. So we have the 5 keys, and everyone can see? You see the 5 keys in the card, which is Henry Box Brown. The idea is to see if I can get Henry Box Brown from the box to be delivered as mail to Philadelphia. And my guest there is Seth.
Yeah.
And
Michael.
Joanna.
Let me ask you, do you want to see Henry Box Brown go from the box to the envelope visibly?
I think it's more fun if it's not visible.
Yeah.
You actually go visibly. Oh, like this.
No, not visibly.
Not interested.
Okay, you want to go invisibly.
Yes.
It's a lot harder.
Undetected.
Okay, that is a lot harder. Okay. And typically when I do this on stage, I have them about 6 feet apart.
That's appropriate.
Yeah. Also, Christian did before it was popular. But watch, all I need to do is touch like that. And with any success, Henry would have escaped, leaving only the keys.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
That's good.
Have you been watching this envelope the whole time?
The whole time.
Like a TSA agent, I'm going to ask you.
It was never
Has
intended
been in your
to
possession
originally
the whole
watched.
time. In the possession of your sight. Well, let's see. What's the card?
No.
10 of Cups.
No.
TSA is gonna get us.
Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, guys, thank you so much for helping Rory out. Rory, thank you so much for that amazing piece of magic. Now that we've gotten all the fun stuff out of the way, what I'd love to do now is bring all of our guests back. Bring Rory Rennick back, bring Randee Shine back, and bring Tessa and Jeff Evason back so that we can start having some interesting dialogue about what does it mean to be a black magician, a black magical entertainer, or to be black in general in America. But before we even get into that, how are you all feeling with our current climate? What are some of your thoughts about where we are as a country?
I'm exhausted.
You and me both.
If I
think
It's
so.
a marathon. It's a marathon.
But it's a good exhaustion, okay? It's like a good workout. I've had so many people within the last 2 weeks give me a call. I've had arguments. I've had discussions. I've shed some tears. Some people shed tears because we're at this watershed moment, no pun intended, of people actually listening. And so I'm excited about that. People, for the first time, a lot of black people are allowed to voice their opinion and emotion when people are actually listening. Before, sometimes people would think that you were playing the race card or race baiting or, giving vent to undue anger. But people are actually listening. So I'm excited about that.
And I guess in certain respects, people are listening, but I still get a lot of people who think that I'm race baiting or I'm the reverse racism. Like, how is that even a thing? I get that a lot. About Randee, I know you're very vocal about this particular subject. Tell me, what are you feeling?
Well, as Rory said, this is the first time people are listening, and there is some pushback going on here. But it takes more than listening. Listening and having a dialogue, a conversation is only the first part. It is what happens next after this. And so I'm really interested to see what comes out of this. Now, the protesting, the rioting, if you want to call that, looting, whatever, the kneeling, the marching in the streets, all of that plays an important part. But now let's see what happens. One of the things that immediately happened is that states, cities are starting to recognize today, Juneteenth. And some businesses have closed down and in honor of that. In honor of Juneteenth. However, what I don't want to see, and I've talked to a couple other colleagues of mine and friends, we don't want Juneteenth to become a local, state, or national holiday, and it's a day where, hey, it's Juneteenth. We're having a Juneteenth sale. Come on down and purchase a home, and you could move into any home 40 miles away from where any of our local offices are, and we'll give you a yearly bus pass for the rest of the year. There's a lot of things I said in there. 48 in the morning.
There's a lot that needs to be unpacked just from that particular thing.
We don't want it to come like that. We want it to become if it is to go that way, a day of celebration, a day of reverence, a day of reflection, and those types of things. It's part of American history, but this is only one part, because there's other parts of American history that has been buried, has been not written in the history books intentionally, but it's part of American history. African American history is American history, and we have to acknowledge all of it: the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the beautiful.
Well so let me ask you this, and I agree, completely well said. So I'll bring this to both Randee and to Tessa and Jeff. one of the things that I'm seeing, and I just want to piggyback off of one thing you said earlier, Randee, about essentially not only politicizing, but trying to monetize financially on both the Juneteenth and the whole Black Lives Matter thing. One of the things that I noticed is that there have been a lot of companies that have just started recently. They've never done it up until a knee went on George Floyd's neck that says, Black Lives Matter. And I'm wondering if that is because that's their actual stance or because they understand the power of a black dollar. I want to get your thoughts on that.
I think that's very true, that they understand the power of the black dollar. But I think it's America, and America is about money. It's about making money and having success in life. So I think that's a natural flow that's going to happen that may be hard to prevent. But instead of focusing on that, I do think what Rand was saying, to make Juneteenth or any other day that has to do with Black history an opportunity, not just for us to celebrate and talk about it, but to teach other people in an entertaining way, as we saw Rory do with Henry Box Brown, so that they can absorb what's happened. People don't like to hear the word slavery, but we have to keep saying it because we're not in a good place yet. We're closer, but we still have so much more work to do. I believe that all lives should matter, but all lives don't matter at this point. And it's really important. What we're celebrating today and working on today is to make Black Lives Matter much more than they are at this point. And it's a process that's going to take some time, step by step. I love that people have been speaking out, and the same, I think we've all been experiencing a lot of people sending us positive messages, a lot of people going out and protesting on our behalf that are not Black. And then we have a lot of people that totally disagree with what we're saying and think that we're not oppressed in any way whatsoever. They don't understand it. So we still have to keep working to make them understand that it is going on, and we're not just making this like a showbiz thing. This is really serious, and it's really devastating. George Floyd, what happened to him is a huge physical and emotional symbol of what the Black people feel in this country of America, this country that they helped to build.
Right.
Very powerful.
I want to add to what Tessa said, which is very powerful, and touch on and try to answer what you said. The question you asked, Eric, in terms of money, are organizations, companies using that because they know the value of the black dollar? Well, if you look at the disparity in wages in this country between African Americans, people of color, and people who are not of color, there's a big gap. Even if you have the same educational attainment, even if you have the same qualifications. So if you're really serious about this, Black Lives Matter, and you want to bring economics and money into this, well, what is wrong with hiring some Black contractors? What is so wrong with funneling that money into some Black freelance workers, Black companies, Black banks? Because what that does, that raises everyone up. It does. Remember the Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Tulsa riots. That was a Black town, very wealthy, in the middle, or surrounded by towns that didn't accept the people who lived there, and that town was demolished, destroyed. It was a wealthy town. Black economics in working together, banks, movies, barbershops, businesses, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And so when you look at that and talk about economics, hey, this is a big economic thing because the black dollar is powerful. And that's only good for the country anyway.
I agree. So, let's bring this around a little bit. And we're all, people of color who happen to do magic. I'm wondering if any of you would be willing to tell the viewers at home about instances where you've felt like you've some things that have happened to you that may not have happened if you happen to not be Black. Anyone willing to share in that instance?
I'll share one that's really benign and somewhat humorous. But there's also some other ones things that are more serious. One of the more amusing ones was because there are very few, when you think of the number of white magicians in the United States and all around the world. we were relatively small. I remember going to a venue, a ritzy venue. A man opens the door and he says, "Are you the entertainment tonight?" I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "Oh, you're the DJ." I said, "See, I didn't know if the venue had told them that a magician was coming, or my appearance was going to be a surprise." So I said, "No, I'm not the DJ." I said, "I'm the magician." He goes, "Oh, you're the musician. So what instrument do you play?" And then the older guy chimed in as well. He says, "Oh, he's the musician." And he says, "Well, what genre do you?" I said,
I've had the same thing happen to me a bunch.
I didn't want to be too corrective. I said, "I'm the magician." Okay, so you want to sing? You want to get your mic and everything set up? I said, "Okay." I just let it ride. And then at the end of the show,
you gotta let it go.
At the end of the show, he shakes my hand to almost dislocation, saying, "I had no idea you were a magician."
And a very good one too, right?
And a great one. Sometimes you just gotta let it rock. So here's another question I want to pose to you guys, Randee, Tessa, Jeff. In the magic community, like I've personally experienced a few examples of racism, but I'm wondering what we can do as a cabal of magicians to find some diversity, find some inclusion, find a way to come together and find common ground. What do you guys think we can do as a magical community, not just on a world platform, but in our microcosm?
Interesting. It's I was thinking that many years ago, ICE, Kenrick McDonald, another well-known magician, Black magician, and very successful in the magic world. I told him I had an idea for a show with Black magicians, and that we should call it Magie Noire, which is French, which is Black magic. And I know there's a little, some people maybe not think that that's a positive name. I thought it was, because I'm very much into being proud of being Black. And we didn't really get around to it, but we dreamt about it, and we talked about it. And I think that's something that should happen, because there's many very successful, creative, talented African-American magicians and mentalists. And it would be great to gather them together and show our abilities in a unified, on a stage together. I think that would be really wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Tessa, we're going to talk about the heart and soul of magic offline.
That's right.
And it's something you said about Magie Noire, because that was the original name.
Wow.
So, but anyways, what can we do? Number one, what can we do? Well, we know that there's a network of African-American magicians of color. We do know that. And so we need to inform other magic clubs, conventions, that, hey, you can have a person of color on here. And it's not just because they are a person of color. It's because they have the talent and skill. But if you want to preach diversity, here's some people, because I've often hear, well, I don't know that many African-American magicians of color besides the big three. So who are the big three? The big three are Eric Jones, Chris Capehart, and the Evasons. Those are the big three. But there's a lot of us out here, and y'all doing a great job of representing us, but there's a lot of other great magicians out here that they're not looking at. And there's a lot of young guys that I've been following on social media that are just doing some incredible things. Like, oh, this is the future. This is the future of magicians.
And one of the things that I would love to say, and I apologize for interrupting you, is I think not only do we need to foster the magicians who are already in existence, I think we also need to spend time recruiting other magicians of color, other, trans people, other women who are other people of color, because, this is a pretty much a club that's old white guys, not to be offensive, but that's just the truth. So I think we should have outreach programs, after school programs in schools. And as to my knowledge, there's only one person in this entire country who has dedicated himself to recruiting magicians in lower income areas. And he's out in Inglewood, he's out in Compton, a guy named Maceo Mays.
Yep.
I met him at the Magic Castle, and he's the only person I know. I've donated money to him so that he can buy magic kits to take to these after school programs. And he's getting these young people involved in magic, telling them you don't have to dribble the ball. Shut up and dribble. You don't have to, to sell drugs. There are so many things that you can do in the visual arts that can give you a pathway to success. And I think we need a lot more of that throughout the country.
Right.
How about you, Rory?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Now, I'd like to add the giving us a platform or creating our own platform. And the reason why I say that is because, like I said, I got into magic when I was in graduate school. And we formed a magic club. And so one of the members of the magic club, Brian Froche, said, "Have you ever heard of Hiawatha?" I'm like, "Who is that?" He said, "You don't know your own people." He passed me a Genie magazine with Hiawatha on the cover of the magazine. Hiawatha is an African-American magician. On the cover, he was wearing his African garb and had an African walking stick. And that planted a seed in my mind that, hey, if I could see it, I could be it. Because there's someone who looks just like me who's on the cover of a magazine, feature article, and he's doing this thing. So it planted the seed. So when we're on these platforms, when we create our own platforms, or if we're given the space to be on platforms at like magic conventions and everything, you never know who's going to see us. Or you never know who's going to go back and say, "Hey, I saw this magician that looks just like you." Or they can say, "Do you know the Evasons?" No. "Do you know Rory Rennick?" No. "Do you know Eric Jones?" No. You don't know your own people. "Oh, there's some great magicians. You got to see them."
Yeah.
There you go.
I agree with you. There's so many people we're meeting over the years, and it's like, where have you been? How come we don't know you? Kevin Buffet just reached out to us recently. I don't know if you folks know him.
Yes,
so he is focusing with Paul. I never say his name right. Romani, Vanish Magic Magazine, and they're doing an article, and they're going to be covering some featured stories along the way to help out get recognition for African Americans. And I do think the other thing, which of course, Rand, you'll know very well, is there is IABMA, the International Association of Black Magical Artists, and that is a platform and a gathering so we can have like-minded people dealing with problems, not just racial problems, but we think differently, and to help us succeed together and to get the recognition that so many of us have not received. I know Jeff and I have been fortunate to have received a lot of accolades along the way, but there's so many of my brothers and sisters that have not being recognized and people don't know them. And so the work is being done, but we need to do more focus. The Magic Castle, I brought this idea up to them and they were already talking about it and they want to do some work. So I know they'll be able to help with funding and help with the focus. So there are people coming on board. And I have to say that it is seeing the kneeling on of George Floyd that really broke open so many people's minds. And it's a horrible thing that happened. And the good thing that happened about it is I think that it's bringing us a little bit more closer together.
I do.
And we're all ready to jump on that. All right. But you know what? Go ahead, Rory. You haven't had a lot. Go ahead.
To chime in, the thing about George Floyd was to bring and bring to light the underlying problem. The underlying problem is, and this is probably the biggest and the biggest illusion that's been perpetrated upon America and the world in general is white supremacy ideology. The fact that I do Henry Box Brown, people in our country usually say there's two things you don't talk about. Well, actually three. You don't talk about religion, politics, or race. Well, these were the conditions, the backdrop of his life. He was a slave because of the color of his skin. He was a slave because politically it was acceptable. He was a slave because the brand of Christianity that he fell under supported it as well, until the abolitionists fought it. Until we get rid of white supremacy ideology, you'll see more things. I think that that's going to eliminate some of the police problems and some other issues. But until we, as a country, make a decision that we're going to rid ourselves of that, just like I was telling about a health problem. A health problem, you have to have a true assessment as to where you are, how did you get here, and where to go. Now we're finally seeing how do we get here, and we can't eliminate the talk of slavery. We can't talk about justice under the backdrop of white supremacy ideology. Now, for those who don't believe that it exists, you do some research, and you'll see that it's the undercurrent of most of the social injustices in our country.
Right. You know, I want to say something about George Floyd and him being choked and murdered. And because I had a debate with a few magicians about that. And like, oh my gosh, that's not a long time. And, you know, he didn't really die from that. It was something else. And I had to respond by saying, you like David Blaine, don't you? Yes. That's what the response said. Do you remember the first time David Blaine did that underwater thing he did on television, and he had to hold his breath for a certain amount of time on television, and he didn't break his record that he wanted to break, his goal. He didn't meet that goal the first time. If you watch it, he didn't. So now imagine someone is on your neck like that for 8 minutes. I challenge anyone to hold their breath for 8 minutes. I challenge you. No, you won't be able to do it. So when it's forced upon you, you know the end results. And so I like to use those type of analogies when I'm talking to fellow performers. And the Evasons and I had a conversation earlier today, and you alluded to this too, Eric. People often say, "You're an athlete, shut up and dribble." Oh, you're a multimillionaire, so you shouldn't be kneeling. Oh, you're a magician. I just came to see tricks. But if you look at the history of artists and entertainers, they always use their platform, their talents to speak about social issues, social injustice. Remember, Marvin Gaye came up with that song, "What's Going On?" That was a message that he was saying. He's using his platform, using his voice. And other artists throughout history have done the same thing. And so for those who are watching and who are uncomfortable with this conversation, you got to look at that. You know, hey, you know what? We are artists, we are human, and we're going to use our space, our platform. And as I often say, as I told the Evasons earlier today, if I'm bowling down your alley and knocking down some pins, you got to own that, not me.
Right. Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting you're talking about all this, and the theme has been listening to each other. And as you were speaking, Rand, it made me think about my relationship with Jeff. Of course, it's obvious we're mixed race couple. And when I met Jeff, long story short, I lived in Canada, moved to the Caribbean, then came back to Canada and met Jeff within a year of returning to Canada. And I didn't even know that I had so much judgment, although my mother had really tried to teach us to not judge all races or all people by the act of one person, the bad act of one person. But yet, when situations would happen, the first thought would pop in my mind so often is that person is racist. And sometimes I'd say it out loud to Jeff. And so at some point, he showed me a way to see people differently. And he was asking me, how do you know that they're racist? I said, that's just a feeling I have. And then if it's obvious, it's obvious. But there's times it wasn't obvious. And he said, how about shifting the way you think? What did you say to me? What did you tell me to do?
I said that maybe people just think you're beautiful, and maybe they're giving you a second look or looking a little bit longer at you because they like what they see, not that they're judging negatively. And I want to say that I'm so humbled to be with all of you guys. This group. Somebody fall? What happened?
Somebody's crying.
I was like, oh.
Violin. Yeah.
But, you know, I'm here because of Tessa, obviously. But my family is Tessa's family. It's the only family I have left for the most part is my immediate family is Tessa and her family. And I was saying earlier to Rand that I really don't look at people in terms of color. When I look at my brothers or my mother-in-law, Tessa's mother, or Tessa, obviously, I just see another person. It isn't a matter of black and white, but we're talking about black and white. So happy to use those terms. But I really think that if we could just all see each other and listen to each other, that we would really understand each other so much better and listen to the messages that are coming out. I'm loving some of the things I see on social media that a lot of people that were reluctant at first are now understanding and jumping on board, but it's other people, it's taking a lot more time for them to get there.
And the conversation have to continue. They absolutely have to continue.
Groups,
but
if people are listening, the SAM, Society of American Magicians, the International Brotherhood, and some of the big stores that we all purchase products from, most of them have come over and they've made strong statements. It's taken other ones a little bit longer, but at least they're all on board, and I just love that there is a movement happening, and I don't think there's any going back this time.
No, I don't think so. But I also think we have to listen to people that are on the other side and hear what they feel also, because they may have some valid reasons for saying what they're saying and feeling what they're feeling. And so we need to listen to them too, not just so they'll come on over and join us. I hope that they will, but then at least we can find a better balancing point, and maybe there'll be even a little bit of a compromise, because even that will help to shift it. And then something else I just thought of, is interesting to see that with slavery for so many years, the good people allowed it to happen until they finally went to war. But there's so many years, so many people that knew that it was wrong and tried to help or didn't help. Now we're experiencing that. This is exactly what we're talking about. You know, there's good police officers out there, but the whole system allows them to not help out their fellow human being. They have to stand with their fellow police officers in situations where they could avoid shooting, killing, hurting someone. I don't even understand why police officers need to shoot anybody in so many of these situations. And so often the people are innocent. And most often it's our Black brothers, Black men. I mean, we all walk around with them in the top of our minds and our consciousness, and with great concern. Never do I drive by and see a Black man pulled over by 4 or 5 police. And man, I may not pray every day, but I am praying in that moment that he gets through. And we really hope it'll change. And I have to say, too, that sometimes white people come and stand up for us. We had an incident, not with us personally, but we were witnessing an incident. And a group of us were gathered together, and Jeff was the one that made his way to the front and spoke up to change the moment. And afterwards, we were all like, hey, we were about to speak, but there was a Black man there. And Jeff said, no, that's why I spoke out. Because if you went out there and spoke to the cops, we don't know what was going to happen to you. And all it was is there are 2 Black women who were sitting on the sidewalk. They put them their handcuffs behind their backs and sat them down in the snow and the mud, even though there was a bench behind them and there was a car right there. And the police officer went by, and Jeff popped out. We were all in a store together, popped out of the store and go, excuse me, officer, why are those women sitting there like that? Why aren't they in the police car? Why aren't they on the bench? Why are you treating them like this? And the officer said, well, because they stole something from the store. And
so they're criminals.
Yeah, the criminals, and they stole stuff. And Jeff said they allegedly stole stuff. Right? He says, I think you've got this all reversed. Anyway, he went and spoke to the officers. They picked them up, put them on the bench, and those women were looking around like they couldn't understand what could possibly be happening to make them transfer the way that they were treating them into a more positive light. So I've been with him for so many years, and it's amazing what he's done.
Right. That's a great example of, allyship, using your privilege to help change your narrative in a positive light. And I really appreciate hearing that story as well. Before we conclude, I wanted to give both Seth and Joanna an opportunity to come on. They're with Diversity and Inclusion with the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust, and I'm hoping that they might have a few questions for us as well.
So I did have a question. I don't know a lot about magic, but what I do see of magic, it is, kind of the mainstream. It is very white and is very male. But I would love to hear, when you were starting out, did you have any Black magicians or just anybody any role models that were coming before you as you were getting into the business?
I'll say that when I first got started, I thought I was the only Black magician on the planet. And I think that's a similar story with a lot of us. Until we actually get out into the world and we start performing and meet other magicians, we don't know that other Black magicians exist. When I first started, I'd only seen 2. One was Felston Jones on The World's Greatest Magic. And the other was Chris Williams. I saw him on Showtime at the Apollo. But this is well before I did my first piece of magic. So they weren't the people that I wanted to emulate. The person that I wanted to emulate was the only other person of color that I saw on television, David Blaine. And he was the closest thing to a black guy I had. I still don't know what the hell he is. But he was the example that got me started. But I'd love to hear from some of the other guys.
As I said, I saw Hiawatha, and it wasn't until like 8 years later where I personally met him. But I just saw him on a cover of the magazine. But in terms of, I'm gonna just pivot detour a little bit. It brings people who influenced me were actually music artists, particularly hip hop artists, the Roots. And I'll give you an example of the other one. So during my show, and this is how the Black experience breathes life into your show and why it's good for magic. During my show, I get to a point where I look at the audience and I say, look, you're 5 seconds away from an oh my God. The climax happened, the audience say, oh my God. Then I look at the audience and I say, look at your neighbor and say, man, that magician's good. Where does that come from? That comes from watching my father preach on Sunday when he said, look at your neighbor, tell him amen. There you go, right there. And so, or you're 5 minutes away from a shout. And so my experience in magic, which is kind of crazy, magic, religion, and seeing my father preach, I bring that into my performance. What I'm saying is that because there's not a lot of Black magicians out here that we looked at and we had our role model from, we had to grasp from other things in our lives and bring that into our magic. But in a way, it's a great thing because it's fresh, it's unique, and it's really authentic to us. That's excellent. That's what I have to say about that.
Just like me, I grew up in the projects, so a lot of my humor, because there were no magicians I saw on stage. We seen things disappear, like people's cars. We didn't call it magic as such. No one came and pressed to digitize Larry's car. No, they stole that sucker. Having the lack of magical influences in my life, I looked at the white magician and I was blown away by a guy named Blackstone. When he came to the Palace Theater, I saw that, and I think it was like 6 Black people in the whole audience, that day. But it profoundly affected me and made me think, wow, I want to do something like that. But I had to fight this because, like I said, from a cultural standpoint, it was a white thing. From a religious standpoint, that was the devil, right? So there was a lot of these barriers already built within to keep me away from it until I got older, like Randee. I came to magic a lot later in life, but I credit the white magicians who took me under the wing, answered the questions, and allowed me to grow as an artist as well. And we need those type of allies to continue.
Very true.
That's awesome.
I grew up in the island of St. Lucia. At least that's one of the places that I grew up. I also grew up in Grenada, but St. Lucia was very significant for me. I saw a TV show with a magician, but it was just a couple of minutes. I knew nothing about magic. And then when I was 20, I moved back to Canada, where I had lived as a child also. And a year after moving there, I met Jeff. And that's how I got introduced to magic. I had no idea that there was such a thing as magic shows, cards, never seen it, never heard of it. And so once I got into it, I just fell right into it and I loved it. And of course, I was surrounded by a sea of white people, which is okay. They were wonderful. And then I saw Goldfinger and Dove, and that changed everything. I mean, spectacular, soulful. Oh, they just blew my mind. And beautiful people, so kind. And talking about Felsen Jones, I mean, that is a dynamic performance. So that really helped to shore up my connection, my feeling as a part of it. There'd be so many times I'd be at conventions and places and I'd be the only person of color. And I didn't really focus on that. It didn't really trouble me. I don't really recall anybody making me feel uncomfortable. I was a very shy person at that time. So that would be that more than anything. But I just kept striving ahead. And of course, Jeff is always very encouraging. And many people were very positive. But it was nice to now have role models, people that you could look at and see. But up until then, I just did things my own way because I had nobody else that was similar to me. And there are very few women also that I could actually model myself off or get some ideas and mentor after. So it was really fabulous.
Great answers, guys. Seth,
yeah.
if you could.
The television special,
exactly.
I think it was in the 70s, maybe, called Bare Touch of Magic. And that was the first time I'd seen Goldfinger and Dev. But yeah, soul is the word that comes to mind. And they are, well, they helped us when we were starting out.
Yeah.
They became friends and very influential in where we are today.
Yeah, very generous, kind people.
Excellent. So thank you, guys. I do want to move on to Seth quickly. We're running a little bit over, so I want to make sure we get your question in there, Seth. Thank you so much for being patient.
Of course, no problem. It's so great to hear this conversation, especially because I work in education at the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust. And when you all were introduced, you weren't just magicians, but you were educators and teachers. And even in this conversation that we're talking about, it's so valuable. We know that representation matters, that you need to see someone that looks like you and also see someone that doesn't look like you and learn from that. So, I don't have it's a big question that I don't think anyone can answer today, but how do we incorporate that more into classroom and into the education system? More so, have you had those experiences going into the classroom, and what has that been like to find inspiration in working with students?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, there you go, Rory. Please do.
I work part-time as an educator, as a teaching assistant. So I'm in the classrooms with very young ones. And I remember the first time I did a show for one of them, and the teacher brought all the kids to the carpet, and I was setting up my last pieces for the show, and two kids, a black kid and a white kid, they looked at each other, and the little white kid, he was like this. He said to his little black friend, "He's black," and the little black boy says, "I know." And I think this is 2011. Why are they so surprised? But then what I found was the teacher the day before sent something home with the kids to let them know that a magician was going to come, just in case some parents may have some reservations. Well, on the invitation, there was a little piece of clip art: top hat, cape, gloves, cane, and of course, he was white. So they were just a prisoner of an overused, type, a caricature of what a magician is. And so after that, we need to get more exposures to the teachers to let them know, hey, there are other educators who are entertainers as well. And Randee deals with the college market, so he can speak more to that.
Yeah, so to answer your question, Seth, part of it is going to take some work by educators like yourself, and you have to become an educational archaeologist. And what I mean is that you want to dig deep and find these different stories. When I talk to magicians, I often say, how many of you know that the first American-born magician was a man of color? No, they didn't know that. The first American-born magician was a man of color. And so there's these stories. It wasn't until recently people didn't realize or know about Juneteenth until this time. And where's something that I've known about for a very long time in my life and other incidents. So you have to be, like I said, an educational archaeologist and look for these stories, look for the information that's inclusive and bring them to the classroom or to the people that you're going to educate.
It's interesting that growing up in the Caribbean, probably just before I left, they had changed the entire curriculum to be more inclusive of history of African Americans or any of the slaves or any of the peoples of the Caribbean, because of course most of our history was based on Europe and America, and it's like, what about us? We don't even know our own history.
Mm-hmm.
So they started shifting that and other studies that were relevant to Caribbean lifestyle, Black people's lifestyle. And I wish I had gone to school at that time to experience it, but I know it was a really powerful thing that they did. And in the Caribbean, education is number one. It's the most important thing. They know that it can change your life. And so they give their all. If you can't do well in school, you will get lessons, you'll get support, but you will do well. That's the focus. And I think that's really important, a focus we need here in America or other countries to really help out Black students. They really don't have as many opportunities that they should have.
Mm-hmm. One other thing, real quickly. I went to a symposium about teaching African-American history, particularly slavery, in elementary schools. Two of the biggest obstacles that were an impediment to teaching about slavery was one, was white guilt, and two, Black rage. Enough teachers weren't able to navigate those feelings they thought they would engender if they brought up the subject. And so there are resources they can get that will help them to be able to teach those subjects. And as our country becomes more diversified, learning all those different types of histories, it can be pretty convoluted. And like Randee said, it's a work of an archaeologist. Plus two, what I learned as I'm getting ready to be 60, like the Civil War was maybe a chapter, gets reduced to like 3 paragraphs. So we're dealing with the volume of information in a short period of time.
I love what you
amazing points. Yeah. Oh, please go ahead.
I love what Rory said about the little boys and the white kid saying to the Black kid, "Hey, he's a Black magician," and it reminds me of this little video that makes its way around Facebook every once in a while. The 2 little Black boys running down the sidewalk and seeing each other and hugging. And so I'd say, Seth, maybe bring in more Black role models to the school. If it's a magic show, Rory's got a great message in his show. And I think if they can see people that they can look up to coming into their classroom, what a great way to inspire everybody.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we all have to do. So, we're asking other people to help us and to do things and to change things, but we also need to change those things. We shouldn't wait anymore for anybody to come forward and give us the platform we're looking for. Let's just create our own platform and step onto it and help students, but we have to do collaboratively. And then I think we'll have success that way.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, again, I really want to say thank you for all of those amazing responses. I also want to say thank you to Joanna, to Seth, and I apologize, I've forgotten your name, young
Michael.
brother. What was your name? Michael. And Michael, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to you. Thank you so much for being our volunteers.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Excellent. And as we conclude, the last thing that I want to do is a challenge for you all is with only 3 or 4 words. If you could offer a message of unity going forward, what would those words be? I'd like to start with Rory. Give you a couple seconds to think. 3 or 4 words that you can use as a message to inspire in the future.
Don't be afraid of change.
Okay, I'll take that. I like that. All right. And how about you, Randee?
Celebrate diversity, educate others.
Dope. And the Evasons?
See me, I am a human being.
I would say embrace Black culture. It is just wonderful. But the more you know, the more you will love it.
I love it. I've always said.
What can I say?
So with that, guys, I think we're going to conclude the Black Lives Matter episode of Liberty Magic at Home. I want to say thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. I also want to give a special shout out to our guests, Rory Rennick, the Evasons, Jeff and Tessa Evason, also to Randee Shine, the amazing Randee Shine. I also want to encourage you to not forget to continue supporting Liberty Magic at Home and the Pittsburgh Cultural Trust by visiting trustarts.org/donate. You can also donate to Black Lives Matter, the ACLU, and things like the Innocence Project simply by visiting their websites and using your money to push forward a very amazing series of nonprofits. The 4 words that I've chosen, you might have saw it at the very beginning, but they are trust, love, peace, and inclusion, because those are, in fact, the things that we want to do when we celebrate Black Lives Matter. Again, guys, happy Juneteenth. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care of each other.